Medio mejor.
Ella que se... Entonces...
Tú siéntate en medio, Patricia.
Ok. ¿Ah?
Siéntate en medio. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to help us celebrate the fabulous Patricia Ariza, who so incredibly deserves this award. As you can see from the films that we've been seeing, she is artist, activist, an incredible worker for the arts, and a great believer in the role of arts in trying to bring about peace and cultures of collaboration in a country such as Colombia that has lived, as we saw in one of those videos, 111 years of bloodshed and at least 6 decades of internal war. So you also saw in those videos the repetition again and again and again in every single bit of this, the quest for peace. Everything is about peace. And every single person I've ever worked with in Colombia is striving for that and working for that. So one of the things I think we don't understand very well in the US is that you can't really separate out art from politics in the sense, the quest for peace, human rights issues, and all of that, the way we can here, or the way that we just assume here that artistic work is its own thing that lives in a kind of autonomous universe. Whether it's commercial or not commercial, it still exists in a separate place. That's absolutely not the case in Latin America, as you can, as I said, very plainly see here in all of Patricia's work. So I thought that I would begin, first of all, by presenting Leticia Robles Moreno, who is a PhD student in performance studies at NYU and who's going to help us with the translation today. And then just ask Patricia to give us a bit of her background, how she started in theater so many years ago, and the conditions under which she has worked. I know that they're absolutely extraordinary. I get kind of goosebumps every time I hear her talk about them. So maybe start there, and then we can go through questions from you and have more of a discussion in a dialogue. Does that make sense?
¿Cómo empezaste tu carrera? ¿Qué hiciste al principio? Y toda tu experiencia de vida al inicio.
Yo ya le pregunto y luego tú me traduces en inglés. Bueno, Patricia, mil gracias por estar aquí. Y felicidades por este gran premio. Y quería que nos contaras un poco cómo comenzaste tú en el tema de teatro, cuándo fue y cuáles eran las circunstancias en aquel momento para el trabajo artístico, especialmente para mujeres.
Diana is posing the question, how do you start in theater, and what were the circumstances at that moment when you were starting related to theater and the role of women in Colombia?
Bueno, muchas gracias Diana. Para mí este premio es un gran estímulo, una felicidad. Yo empecé a hacer teatro hace 48 años, en el mes de junio de 1966, cuando fundamos el Teatro La Candelaria.
This award for me is really exciting. It makes me feel really fine and stimulated. And I started working on theater 40 years ago in June 1966 with the Teatro La Candelaria in Colombia.
En esa época, las mujeres, digamos, yo creo que en un 98% eran actrices, digamos, hacían parte de grupos, de colectivos, pero eran narradas por los dramaturgos y dirigidas por directores. Muy pocas mujeres estaban en la dirección. Había una que se llamaba Dina Moscovici, una mujer de Brasil, pero de resto muy difícil. Es mucho después que las mujeres empezamos a asumir la dirección y la dramaturgia.
¿Quieres hacer la traducción?
So when I started, women were part of theater groups. They were actresses, but few of them were playwrights or directors. They were their works were written by men. There was one woman in Brazil. Her name was ¿cuál es el nombre de la mujer en Brasil?
Dina Moscovici.
Dina Moscovici, who was a director, but very, very few of them were directors, and just with years, women became directors in theater in Colombia.
Do we need these? Aren't we mic'd?
Yeah, I think you two have body mics, no?
Yeah, we have mics. Tú y yo tenemos estos.
Ah, bueno, ok.
Entonces yo quería preguntarte acerca de la situación política y social, los temas así de seguridad, de las condiciones físicas, materiales para hacer el teatro cuando comenzaron ustedes en el Teatro de La Candelaria.
Question is about safety in Colombia, the material conditions, physical conditions in which theater is performed in Colombia.
Comenzamos con la dirección del maestro Santiago García, un gran maestro del teatro colombiano y latinoamericano, y con la conciencia de que lo que estábamos haciendo era un acto fundacional del teatro, no como una acción extraordinaria. Hasta antes de esa época se hacían estrenos de obras a veces muy buenas, pero que se presentaban 2 o 3 días. Después ahí se acababa todo. Entonces, cuando nosotros empezamos, fundamos también las temporadas de teatro. O sea, presentar una obra durante 15 días era una verdadera proeza.
We started under the direction of Santiago Garcia, a big maestro of Latin American theater, and we were very conscious that it was a foundational act because before that, the theater seasons in Colombia didn't exist. You would perform a play for 2 or 3 days, and then that was it. And they started working for 15 days in one only play, which was a big achievement at that point.
Era una época donde muchos de los actores que estaban en el teatro cuando empezamos decían que no hacían una función si no había por lo menos 10 personas en la sala. Entonces, las otras personas que estábamos empezando, que éramos muy, muy jóvenes, salíamos a la calle a invitar a la gente para que entrara, para poder completar esas 10 personas. Entonces le decíamos a la gente, por favor, señor, entre a la obra, que esta obra va a ser muy importante para su vida. A veces entrábamos mendigos, porque sabíamos que era fundamental que estuvieran las 10 personas. O sea, había que hacerlo. Y de esa manera empezamos a hacer las temporadas en el teatro en Colombia.
So at that point, theater people in Colombia thought that they wouldn't perform if you didn't have 10 people in the audience. So what they started doing they were going to the streets and asking people to come into the theater. This play is going to change your life. And they would talk to homeless people to bring people into theater because they knew that they needed at least 10 people per play.
¿Y cuáles eran las influencias sobre ustedes en aquel entonces, ya que Santiago García es uno de los grandes fundadores del teatro latinoamericano? ¿Cuáles eran sus influencias? ¿Quiénes eran los maestros, digamos, que los inspiraban a ustedes?
Who inspired you? What kind of influences you had at that point? Given that Santiago García is one of the maestros of Latin American theater, who inspired you?
Paradójicamente, el público, digamos, no estaba muy preparado para el teatro contemporáneo que estábamos empezando a hacer. Las influencias eran de Peter Weiss, Bertolt Brecht, el teatro del absurdo también, Beckett, y después Grotowski. Entonces o sea, nos preparamos muchísimo para el teatro y empezamos sabiendo que estábamos empezando, que estábamos fundando un movimiento y que estábamos también fundando la posibilidad de tener un público permanente.
So paradoxically, at the beginning, our audience wasn't prepared for the kind of contemporary theater that we were doing. So our first influences were Peter Weiss, Bertolt Brecht, the theater of the absurd, and later Grotowski. So we started working with that, and we started founding this theater at that point with our in La Candelaria.
Pero muy pronto nos dimos cuenta de la necesidad de hacer un teatro propio, nuestro. Había muy pocos dramaturgos colombianos y dramaturgas casi ninguna. Entonces montamos obras de Enrique Buenaventura, un gran maestro del teatro colombiano también. Y después nos dimos cuenta que necesitábamos nuestras propias obras, entonces empezamos a hacer obras de creación colectiva.
But soon we realized that we needed and wanted our own place. And there were like few playwrights in Colombia at that point and few female playwrights. So we started staging plays by Enrique Buenaventura, another big Colombian playwright. And little by little, we started working together in processes of creación colectiva, collective creation.
De todas maneras, fue un ejemplo para otras personas de teatro. Muy rápidamente se fundaron otras salas y digamos, 10 años después ya había por lo menos 10 o 12 salas independientes en Bogotá. Y el público empezó a acudir de manera permanente.
So with this awareness of needing a Colombian theater, many people were inspired by their work, and soon there were 10 or 12 theater spaces in Colombia or in Bogotá?
En Bogotá y en Cali sobre todo.
In Bogotá and Cali, two different cities. And they started this theater movement at that point.
Quería decir algo, un poquito en inglés. Here I just wanted to add that the theater movement that they were foundational in became so prevalent in Latin America that it traveled throughout the rest of Latin America. So you started having theaters in Peru and later Ecuador, but Brazil, Argentina, all of them modeled on the model that they were developing in Teatro La Candelaria in Colombia, which was what you referred to as collective creation. Later, because there were these festivals between Latin American artists and U.S. artists, artists in the U.S. started picking up this model. So we have, for example, Luis Valdés and Teatro Campesino. We have Bread and Puppet that becomes a permanent kind of collaborator with the Latin Americans, and San Francisco Mime. And so this whole collective creation movement that gets started is basically originated at the time with the Candelaria down in Colombia. And the one thing I think that I'd like her to talk about more if we can get that, is the conditions of absolute violence under which they were working. So when everybody is saying in the videos, but also everybody that I've worked with in Colombia, of how do they stay alive when they are taking these risks every single day in their theater. And Enrique Buenaventura, who's one of the great theater practitioners of the 20th century, who Patricia mentioned, also a Colombian, wrote in one piece that if you all remember the Latin American boom, the novel that just took off, right, in the late 60s, the magical realism, and Garcia Marquez and Cortázar and all of those, he said that he wished every single day that he could leave his country and go to Paris and write, you know, from a nice, safe place. But theater people don't have that privilege of packing up and going, because their audience and their relationship with their audience is what keeps them alive and what keeps them relevant. They can't find a different kind of an audience. So I think that that's one of the reasons that Latin American theater became so strong, and not just relevant, but kind of central for the countries in which a lot of the other artists had gone. And people would come to the theaters to try to get some sense of what was happening in these countries under these conditions that they were living in, right? So the role of theater became very important in Latin America, and it's got a great theater, for those of you who don't know it, of a lot of these very urgent social issues. Bueno, un poquito, una parte. Entonces, quería preguntarte si podrías hablar un poco de la situación de actuar y exponerse en frente de tanta violencia, y lo que a ti te pasó y lo que les pasó a otros teatreros que estaban amenazados realmente por toda la violencia que existía en el país.
Bueno, pues ese es un tema siempre un poco doloroso de hablar. Realmente nosotros trabajamos en condiciones difíciles, tanto políticamente como económicamente. Digamos, el hecho de no contar con apoyo económico, sobre todo durante muchos de los primeros años, yo creo que nos volvió también muy fuertes. O sea, porque fuimos capaces de sobrevivir a situaciones económicas muy duras. Digamos, en La Candelaria, durante los primeros 20 años, nunca recibimos un centavo de honorarios.
So it's painful to talk about this. During the first years, we worked under difficult conditions, politically and economically, and it's very difficult to work under these conditions. During the first 20 years, La Candelaria never received money or funds to work on their plays.
No recibíamos dinero porque ese dinero era para construir la sala, para construir el teatro, y lo construimos. Entonces eso nos volvió muy fuertes para todo, para aguantarlo todo. Entonces lo más difícil de todo pues ha sido la represión, han sido esas dificultades relacionadas con la violencia y con la política, porque han muerto muchos compañeros. El teatro ha estado muy ligado, como dijo Diana, a la política. Digamos, muchos de nosotros somos, además de ser artistas, somos activistas políticos. Entonces eso implica un riesgo. Eso implica un riesgo y ese riesgo se paga. Entonces, pues sí, ha habido amenazas, ha habido dificultades, ha habido... Nuestro teatro en una ocasión fue allanado por el ejército. Los dos teatros, tenemos dos teatros, uno que es el Teatro La Candelaria y al lado la Corporación Colombiana de Teatro. Pero también hemos sobrevivido a eso y eso nos ha vuelto doblemente fuertes, y el trabajo con las mujeres triplemente fuertes.
So the first moment with these economical difficulties, she mentions that all these problems made them really strong at the beginning. So later also they had to endure political violence and all the situation of the country. There are two theaters, La Candelaria and la Corporación Colombiana de Teatro, were intervened by police, and living this political situation made them twice stronger. And also she mentions that working with women make them 3 times stronger.
Quiero añadir algo. I just want to add something to the translation. One of the things that Patricia said is that the actors did not receive a salary for 20 years. And that any money that Candelaria made went to build this space, this theater space that they had. And in terms of the violence, one of their theaters was actually blown up. And I have a friend who was in the audience when the military attacked, and he said he could feel the explosion coming in from the back and just moving forward and like this up until the stage. And I know that Patricia, for several years, had to wear a bulletproof vest every time she got on the stage because they were being singled out for being spokespeople working in these conditions, in these political conditions, and for being activists. So the level of violence was pretty prominent and pretty dramatic for a long time for them.
Sí, fue una etapa muy dolorosa. Nosotros lo sufrimos en carne propia, yo en particular porque soy sobreviviente de un movimiento político que luchó por la paz y eso hizo para mí durante una época la vida muy difícil, pero nunca me presento como víctima, no me siento víctima porque pienso que a mucha otra gente, a los campesinos, le han pasado cosas gravísimas, cosas peores, les han matado a su familia. Entonces, pienso, nosotros fue un episodio muy doloroso, muy terrible. El público nunca nos... jamás. Entonces, en este momento tenemos un tesoro muy grande. Diana, yo creo que lo puede constatar. Tenemos público, siempre va un público, el público nos acompaña. Y eso es un tesoro muy grande que nos da toda la fuerza para seguir adelante. Digo que no me siento víctima porque de ese movimiento mataron más de 4.000 personas, entonces no puedo comparar el dolor de haber sido una persona amenazada con el dolor de los familiares que han perdido sus hijos, que han perdido sus hermanos. Por eso hemos puesto tanta fuerza en la consecución de la paz. Digamos, yo sigo siendo una activista por la paz de manera obsesiva.
Okay, so she says that it was very painful. I mean, all this political situation, and she lived her in her own life because she was part of this political movement, Unión Patriótica, that was targeted by the state and the military. And but she says that she doesn't consider herself a victim or present herself as a victim because she's thinking about peasants in Colombia and all the people who have lost their families and they endure more terrible things. And also there were like more than 4,000 people killed that were part of the Unión Patriótica, and she survived. So she says that surviving was how I can be a victim if I survived. And also after that, I think about my audience, and I think the audience is a big gift for us, it's a treasure. And Diana knows about it. We have an audience in Teatro La Candelaria that are with us, and I feel fortunate because of this.
¿Quieres añadir algo o abrimos a preguntas del público, ya que han visto videos?
Sí, podemos abrir a preguntas.
Should we just open it up?
O algo de las performances, de pronto, decir algo antes de las performances.
Si quieres, lo que tú quieras.
Bueno, antes de abrir a las preguntas que me dice Diana, quería agregar algo, y es que nosotros seguimos en La Candelaria como un laboratorio de teatro. Ensayamos todos los días de la vida, de lunes a sábado, por la mañana y por las noches hacemos temporadas. Pero también hacemos otros trabajos con el movimiento social de víctimas, con el movimiento social de mujeres. Hacemos performance en las plazas públicas, en las calles, en defensa de los derechos humanos o preguntando dónde están los desaparecidos, o conmemorando con las mujeres el Día de la No Violencia contra las Mujeres. Siempre estamos trabajando con los movimientos sociales. Entonces, eso nos ha enseñado muchas nuevas formas de hacer teatro también, de hacerlo de otra manera. Es decir, no perdemos el trabajo central del laboratorio, pero seguimos abriéndonos a nuevas formas, a nuevos espacios, a otros públicos, a trabajar con las víctimas.
We work with La Candelaria. La Candelaria is still a lab, a theater lab. We work with La Candelaria Monday through Saturday, all day long. But we also work with social movements and women movements. And we take the streets, we perform in the streets, we work with these movements, and that has learned us new ways to approach to theater keeping in mind the lab of La Candelaria. We're also learning about new ways to perform through our work with women and social movements.
And when the Hemispheric Institute was there in 2009, Patricia organized a performance for Plaza Bolívar, which is the main square of Bogota, and she choreographed 300 women, among them many of the mothers and the wives of the disappeared. And they did a huge performance. I think it lasted well over 2 hours. Asking where are they? And this was something that had been prohibited in Colombia, in Bogota, but because it was an invitation from an outside entity, being the Hemispheric Institute, they were given permission. So this was like one of these massive outdoor performances, and just thousands and thousands of people there witnessing that performance. But I know that's just one of many that Patricia has organized and choreographed.
Bueno, de todas maneras, la situación en Colombia ha cambiado. Ha cambiado porque los movimientos sociales, la intelectualidad, los artistas también han ido imponiendo otra manera de ser al Estado. Entonces, nosotros ahora podemos hacer estas cosas. Lo hacemos de manera permanente. Se pueden hacer sobre todo en Bogotá. En las regiones todavía sigue siendo muy difícil, porque todavía hay rezagos del latifundio y del narcotráfico.
The situation now in Colombia has changed. So we're able now to perform in the streets, we're able to do this, but we can do that in Bogota. And this has changed because of the role of artists, intellectuals who have been working for this. Now it's different in outside Bogota, in other regions, because there are still traces of the drug lords and narcotráfico, and also the way that the land was on the land, the power of the landowners is still very strong in some regions in Colombia.
Okay, so we can open up to questions. Yes?
I just want to say, I saw when I was, but this is pretty shocking, so I hope nobody minds. When I was at Patricia's festival in 2012, Festival for Women on Stage for Peace, and I saw parts of the catwalk show, can you hear me? Which I think they must have decided not to put in the video because it's so shocking. Think about body and memory. Some of the women who were walking down the catwalk, when they threw open their gown to see the beautiful dress underneath, they revealed their naked and abused bodies. They're beaten, the scars of on their bodies. I don't know if these were prostitutes or just people like you and me. Anyway, I just think this is so important for all of us to know. That's all.
¿Sí?
Patricia, you have founded a company that has really grown and survived because of particularly who you are, the type of woman, extraordinary woman you are. What's the future of the company? How do you see passing on the legacy? What will be the leadership of the future for the company, essentially?
Sí, el futuro yo creo que está garantizado, primero porque hay un movimiento, no estamos solos, hay un movimiento teatral en Colombia muy grande, muy vigoroso, muy comprometido y muy diverso. No somos los únicos. Segundo, dentro de nuestro grupo hay gente joven, hay gente muy joven, que nosotros somos 14. En esos 14 hay todas las generaciones. Está el maestro Santiago, que tiene 86 años, ya lo está dirigiendo, pero también hay personas de 22 años. Y de ahí, entre ellos dos, hay todas las generaciones. Entonces, pensamos que esto puede seguir. De todas maneras, ahí está en la memoria colectiva.
So she says the future is guaranteed because first, we're not alone. There is a movement now. There's a movement of theater, and we're working together with this movement. And second, within the Teatro La Candelaria, there are very young members. So there are 14 people in the group, and they have all the different ages in the group, from the maestro Santiago Garcia, who is 86 years old, and to people who are like 20 years old. So she says, we think we're going to keep going.
Yes.
So firstly, thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing your wisdom and your inspiration that drives and motivates you to create theater and certainly open up the world for us of Colombian theater. I do have a question about, you talk a lot about movement and active theater for action, political theater, and so I'm on the press society, I guess, I've lived under the Soviet regime and for a while before I emigrated, and we had a group of artists, both theatrical and conceptual, called the Nonconformist movement in the 70s, and they were suppressed actively by the Soviet government, and they had to kind of dig their own holes to present art. So I often ask, one of them is my uncle, and he makes quite a lot of money now. At the time, he ate in garbage cans. So I ask him always, tell me, if there was nothing that you needed to fight for, if you were not considered a nonconformist artist, and if you conformed, and if everything was fair in the world, would you still continue to create? I want to know the source, Patricia, of your inspiration for creation. If all was like John Lennon said, imagine all the people were equal and everything was good, would you still find a need to create art and theater? Thank you.
Tamaña pregunta.
Big question.
Bueno, yo creo que hay una diferencia entre la práctica política y la práctica artística.
There is a difference between the artistic practice and the political practice.
Porque yo hago las dos.
I do both of them.
Entonces, muchas veces tengo que ejercer como esquizofrénica.
Kind of schizoid.
Porque la política busca consensos y el arte busca lo singular.
So politics looks for consensus, and art looks for the singular.
En la medida que se entienda esa diferencia, esas dos prácticas pueden ser muy solidarias.
And to the extent that you understand that difference, both practices can work together and be solidary.
Entonces, para nosotros, no toda la gente que está en Colombia, aunque haya una situación tan difícil, hace un teatro que refleje lo que está pasando.
not all the people in Colombia, although they work in theater, are doing theater. There is a reflection of the political situation that they are living.
Hemos vivido en situaciones límite.
We have lived in limit, and we have lived in the edge.
Y eso influye mucho en nuestra sensibilidad.
That is a big influence in our sensibility.
Y como buscamos siempre hacer obras nuestras de dramaturgia nacional, entonces eso aparece.
And because we are always trying to create our own pieces of national dramaturgy, those topics just appear.
Ni siquiera es un problema voluntario que nosotros digamos vamos a hacer un teatro político, vamos a hacer un teatro donde se hable del conflicto. Nunca lo decimos así, nunca lo pensamos así.
It's not a matter of a willpower where we say, okay, we're going to do this kind of theater, we're going to do political theater. No, that just happens.
Siempre pensamos en buscar un tema que nos atraviese el alma y que podamos llevarlo al público.
We think about a topic that touches our soul, and we can, and we were in a topic that we could be able to bring to the audience.
Y tratamos de hacerlo de la mejor manera.
And we do it, and we try to do it in the best way.
Sin embargo, siempre está ahí el conflicto, porque tenemos una intuición informada, como dice un estudioso de la Candelaria, eso está ahí en nosotros, digamos, hace parte del territorio mental.
So, however, the conflict is always there. It's always there. It's part of an informed intuition that we have. It's part of our mental territory. It's part of us.
Yo sí sueño con un mundo en paz.
I dream about a world in peace.
No creo que esté viva para estar en él.
I don't think I'm going to be alive to see it.
Pero imaginándome haciendo política ficción, que ahora, mañana, estuviéramos en un mundo en paz.
But I can imagine, I could do fiction politics and think that we are there. No.
De todas maneras, vivir es un conflicto.
But however, living is a conflict.
Y el teatro no puede hacerse sin pensar en los conflictos.
And you cannot make theater without thinking about conflict.
Lo que debemos tratar es que esos conflictos se resuelvan sin tener que matar a otras personas para resolverlos.
We should try to solve those conflicts without killing other people in order to solve them.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful. I grew up in the 70s and in the States, and my parents didn't want me to be into theater. They forbid me to go into theater, and I was wondering how your family responded to you wanting to be in theater.
Entonces, ¿qué pensó tu familia cuando dijiste que querías hacer teatro?
Antes de hacer teatro, yo me fui de mi casa.
Before doing theater, I left my house.
Cuando tenía 15 años.
When I was 15 years old.
Me fui porque estaba estudiando en un colegio de monjas.
I left because I was studying in a school regented by nuns.
Y escribí un diario. Yo aprendí a escribir al revés, como Leonardo da Vinci.
So I had a diary, and I learned how to write backwards, like Leonardo da Vinci.
Pero las monjas me descubrieron el diario.
But the nuns discovered my diary.
Y ahí narraba una historia completamente ficticia de una relación amorosa con un teniente del ejército del cual yo estaba enamorada porque el colegio quedaba enfrente a un cuartel.
So in this diary, I wrote a fictitious story, a love story with a lieutenant that she was in love with, because the nun school was in front of a military station.
Las monjas descubrieron el diario, lo leyeron con un espejo.
The nuns discovered the diary and they read it with a mirror.
Me expulsaron del colegio.
And she was
Fue
expelled.
muy doloroso para mí porque iba a terminar el bachillerato siendo muy jovencita.
That was very painful because I was about to finish school being really, really young.
Eso era una gran desilusión para mí y una gran desilusión para mi familia.
It was a big disappointment for me and for my family.
Entonces me fui de la ciudad y me encontré en otra ciudad con un movimiento de poetas que se llamaba el nadaísmo.
So I left the city and I found this movement of poets who would call themselves nadaísmo, like nothingism.
Un movimiento existencialista de hippies, gente muy bella.
An existentialist movement of hippies, very beautiful people.
De manera que cuando regresé a la ciudad y entré a la Universidad Nacional a estudiar arte, ya estaba marcado mi destino.
So when I went back to the city and started university to study arts, my destiny was already marked.
Y allí conocí a Santiago García.
I met Santiago García at the Universidad Nacional.
A quien le censuraron unos programas de mano de una obra de teatro que él estaba montando.
And some flyers that for a play that he was staging were censored.
Entonces, en la fiesta de estreno de un montaje de Galileo Galilei,
So in the party, in the after party after the staging of Galileo Galilei,
él dijo que quería fundar un teatro independiente.
He said that he wanted to found an independent theater.
Y preguntó quiénes se van conmigo.
And he asked who wants to join me.
Y yo levanté la mano. No terminé la universidad.
I didn't finish the university,
pero fundamos un teatro.
But we found a theater.
Y hemos hecho muchas obras.
And we have staged many
Que han
plays.
sido nuestra tesis de grado.
Those were our dissertation, our thesis.
Mis padres, pues muy difícil para ellos.
For my parents, it was very difficult.
Muy duro para ellos porque, pero después lo entendieron y lo aceptaron.
But later they understood and they accepted that.
Hi, Patricia. We were talking a bit about the difference between political theater and non-political theater and the ways in which those two go together. And I really loved your explanation of how they're not necessarily a separate thing. But so I think that as women theater artists, anything we do is inherently political. It's just my belief because of the way things are. And also, I'm always curious to talk a little bit about the political situation in Colombia as it relates to the United States. Because we as American citizens rarely get the facts on the ground of what's happening in the countries in which we're sort of messing around. And I think from a leftist perspective, the trade agreements with Mexico and Latin America are not particularly good things. But I don't know how the people in Colombia actually feel about it. And I'm curious, you said that things have changed. And I think that it's changed on this end as well. I think we were able to have you come to this city without a lot of trouble because of those changes. But I'm also curious how that may or may not have influenced your work, your life, and if it's having anything to do with your artistic practice.
Pues yo creo que hay muchos esquemas para mirar los países en el mundo.
There are different frameworks to look at countries in the world.
Yo no puedo decir que Estados Unidos sea incluir a todo el mundo en que es un país imperialista, por ejemplo.
So I cannot say that everyone in the States is imperialist.
Conozco gente muy demócrata, extraordinaria, y sé del movimiento de mujeres aquí en Estados Unidos que es distinto.
I know many people in the States that are wonderful Democrats, and I also know and have learned about the women movement in the United States, which is different.
No toda la gente en Estados Unidos tiene el pensamiento que tiene el Departamento de Estado.
not everyone in the States has the way of thinking that the State Department would have.
No comparto las guerras que Estados Unidos hace en el mundo.
I don't share the wars that states have in the world.
También hay un esquema para juzgar de parte de Estados Unidos y de parte de Europa a muchos de los países de América Latina.
So there's also a framework from the side of the United States and Europe to evaluate and judge the Latin American countries.
Durante la época que Colombia sufrió tanto el narcotráfico, por ejemplo, la gente pensaba que todos en Colombia éramos narcotraficantes o que todo el país estaba relacionado con el narcotráfico.
During the years of the narcotráfico, the drug trading, many people would think that everyone in Colombia was related to the drug trafficking.
Y eso no es verdad.
And that is not true.
Son grupos minoritarios que se apropian de unos negocios y terminan teniendo una gran influencia por digamos, un gran impacto por la violencia que ejerce.
The drug trafficking groups are small, they are minorities, but they have a big impact because of the violence they exert.
Entonces, yo creo que esa es una relación, muchas veces, es una mirada muy esquemática. Yo, en esa época que era tan fuerte el narcotráfico, a mí me pasó de ir a festivales de teatro y los propios compañeros de otros países de los grupos llegaban donde los grupos colombianos a pedirnos cocaína.
So there's a very schematic vision because what happened to me is that when I was in international theater festivals, other groups would come to us Colombian artists to ask us for cocaine.
No es fácil la relación porque vivimos de esquemas. Los medios de comunicación presentan el mundo desde los esquemas.
So it's not easy because the media, present schematic visions of the countries.
No es fácil la relación con los Estados Unidos.
It's not an easy relationship with the United States.
Hay que volverla más fácil.
We have to transform it and make it easier.
Creo que el arte puede ser una manera de comunicarnos mejor y también desde el universo de las mujeres.
So art is a way to establish a better communication and also from the universe of women.
Si solamente nos atenemos a lo que dicen los medios de comunicación, la mirada sobre Estados Unidos va a seguir siendo solamente de un país imperial.
If we follow only what media would say, our vision of the United States is going to be the idea of an imperialist country.
Si solamente nos atenemos a los medios, la mirada de Colombia va a seguir siendo como un país violento o como un país de narcotraficantes.
If we only believe media, the vision of Colombia is going to be the idea of a country that is violent and full of drug lords.
Y yo creo que la verdad, tanto de aquí como de allá, es mucho más compleja.
And I think the truth here and there is more complex.
Eso no quiere decir que no luchemos todos los días porque no haya guerras imperiales.
That doesn't mean that we don't fight every day to finish imperialist wars.
Pero sabemos que aquí hay otra gente, otro pensamiento.
But we know that here there are other people, another way of thinking.
Por eso estoy aquí.
That's why I'm here.
I think one last question, is that right?
Our co-president.
Oh, two more, good.
Second to last.
Two more.
Hi, I want to say how inspired I am to have seen these videos, to see the growth of an artistic and intellectual movement, and to hear you talk about that movement having grown and grown in spite of conflict, and to today. And I think I'm hearing you say that there have been improvements with relations with the government, at least in Bogota. And I wonder if that's true. Am I hearing that? Am I hearing that an intellectual and artistic movement can gain strength and can form a positive relationship and have actual outcomes with the government? And what are those, and how can we in this country learn from them? Well, we will, just hearing what you have to say.
Sí, Colombia ha cambiado, no lo suficiente, y sigue estando en peligro, la paz sigue estando en peligro, porque hay un sector muy guerrerista, muy de derecha, que piensa que la salida es militar y que la salida al conflicto en Colombia tiene que ser a bala.
So yes, the situation in Colombia has changed, but not enough, because there is a sector that is the extreme right, who think that the only solution is an armed solution. There has to be war in Colombia in order to finish the conflict.
En este momento, digamos, el país está dividido entre quienes pensamos que la solución es política, y entre quienes piensan que la solución es militar.
So at this point, the country is divided between those who think that the solution should be political and those who think that the solution must be armed military.
Por fortuna, el presidente de la República es la persona que ha iniciado, aunque es un hombre del establecimiento, es un hombre de la élite colombiana, de la élite tradicional colombiana. Sin embargo, pertenece a un sector que cree que el país no es viable si no se hace una solución política.
The president of Colombia, although he's part of the establishment and the elite, he believes that the solution for the conflict has to be a political solution.
Por esa razón nosotros votamos en las elecciones pasadas por este presidente también, porque la paz se tiene que concluir.
That's why we voted for this, for the current president in the last elections, because we have to achieve peace.
También se necesita mucho apoyo internacional en este sentido.
We also need a lot of international support in this sense.
Se necesita un movimiento de opinión mundial a favor de la paz de Colombia.
We need an international movement of opinion in favor of peace in Colombia.
Estamos trabajando con sectores del gobierno, sobre todo del gobierno de Bogotá, y con algunas personas del gobierno nacional y con el movimiento de artistas para hacer una cumbre mundial de arte y cultura por la paz de Colombia.
We are working now with the movement, with the artistic movement, with the movement in Bogotá and also in other regions to for a summit to call for a summit, international summit for the peace in Colombia.
Va a ser el 9 de abril del año entrante.
It's going to be on April 9th, 2015.
Esperamos que muchos de ustedes vayan.
And we hope you all can attend.
Ya se hizo una cumbre de mujeres. Ya se realizó una cumbre de mujeres.
There was we already had a summit of women.
Logramos que en La Habana, donde están debatiendo el gobierno y la guerrilla sobre la paz de Colombia, se introdujera el tema de género también dentro del debate.
Yeah. One big achievement is that in Havana, where the insurgent group and the government are currently in negotiations, the big achievement is to bring women to these conversations and to bring the topic of gender in the conversations.
Estamos muy activos y activas por la paz, pero no es una paz fácil.
We're very active and in action for peace, but it's not an easy peace.
Está llena de obstáculos.
We have a lot of obstacles.
Y pueden pasar muchas cosas.
And many things can happen.
Porque el sector que no quiere la paz se está resistiendo y es un sector muy violento.
Because the group that doesn't want peace is resistant. It's resistant and it's a very violent sector.
pero yo estoy segura que gana la paz.
And I'm sure peace will win.
¿Cuándo usted va a hacer un colectivo a la gente? Pues, how do you soportar la más emoción para los actores y la gente se viven pues through the pain? Cuando los historias de la gente, las mujeres, si es un directriz, how do you handle and support their pain when they share it with you?
Cuando haces la obra colectiva que trata de tanto dolor, ¿cómo trabajas con el dolor de las personas, el dolor que atraviesan?
Hay muchos.
Pues es un dolor que me afecta mucho. Ayer estuve con un grupo de mujeres y también hablaban de lo que viven. Yo creo que cuando las mujeres hablan de lo que les pasa, no hay fronteras, no existen fronteras. Yo creo que lloramos todas también ayer aquí en Estados Unidos.
So it's also very painful for me yesterday in the workshop they were sharing stories of women and she says when we're talking among women there are no frontiers. So we ended up crying together here in the United States, sharing our stories.
Pero cuando trabajo con las víctimas en Colombia es muy duro. Es decir, hay momentos donde pienso como que lo que uno sabe de teatro no sirve.
Working with the victims in Colombia is very, very painful and hard. Sometimes I think that what I know about theater is not enough, it's not useful.
Pero también lo que ellas saben del dolor tampoco sirve.
But also what they know about pain is also useless.
Tenemos que encontrar otra cosa y que no sabemos qué es, pero hemos aprendido a convertir el dolor en fuerza, a convertir el dolor en otra cosa.
So we have to find another thing that we don't know what it is, but we have learned to transform pain into strength.
En uno de los videos que presentamos, que se llama Huellas, que fue el año pasado Premio Nacional en una convocatoria de arte y memoria, trabajamos con 94 personas. La mitad eran víctimas y la otra mitad eran artistas de dedicación sistemática.
So one of the videos that we saw, the performance called Traces, that was received an award. We worked with 90 people. Half of them were victims and half of them were artists of systematic training.
Y logramos hacer una obra juntos y juntas que fue muy estremecedora para el público y también, por supuesto, para nosotros.
And we worked together and staged a play that was very hard to see for the audience, but it also was hard for us.
Una de las víctimas lo describió con una metáfora que yo siempre la cuento.
One of the victims described it as with a metaphor that Patricia always uses.
En relación a lo que a ella le pasaba con su práctica artística, a lo que a ella le pasaba con el dolor en el proceso de la práctica artística.
In relationship with what would happen to her in relationship with pain when she was practicing art.
Decía que al principio era como cargar un piano en la espalda.
She said that at the beginning it was like carrying a big piano on your shoulders.
Después había sido como poner el piano muy cerca.
And then next it was like putting the piano really close to her.
Y que ahora era como tocar el piano.
And now it's like playing the piano.
Me parece una metáfora muy, muy bonita.
I think it's a beautiful metaphor.
Patricia, I found out about your work through Margot, and I decided that I would nominate you for this award to my committee. I found such inspiration as a woman and as a strength of a leader. I would like to know what is your personal inspiration. Where do you go to at night to find that dream, that ideal, that inspiration that nurtures you to keep going?
I don't know.
En tantas cosas.
Patricia is a mommy. She's a grandma.
Eres madre y eres abuela.
Sí, soy madre y soy abuela, tengo 2 nietos. Y bueno, la inspiración viene de muchas cosas. Quizás hay como una deuda tardía mía con mi mamá.
So she's a mother and she's a grandma. She has two grandkids, and inspiration comes from many different places. One is a long time that with her mother.
Yo creo que nos pasa mucho a las mujeres. En mi casa, el hombre más simpático era mi papá.
So that happens to many of us women. At home, my dad was very
tocaba la música.
He played music.
Y de él aprendí el desprecio por el dinero.
And I learned from my father the money doesn't matter.
Su primer sueldo.
His first salary.
Su primer salario. Yo tenía 7 años.
I was 7 or 8 years old.
Y fui a una tienda en la esquina del barrio.
And I went to a little store in the neighborhood.
Y lo vi a él, enrolló todos los billetes como un cartucho.
And I saw my father, and he had made a big cone with all the bills of his salary.
Y tenía al lado un encendedor.
He had a lighter close to it.
Estaba rodeado de trabajadores.
And he was surrounded by workers.
Les estaba diciendo, estaba haciendo un discurso de que el dinero era el enemigo del hombre.
So he was giving a speech saying that money was the enemy of humankind.
Yo me fui corriendo a mi casa.
She ran home.
Llamé a mi mamá.
Called my mom.
Y le dije que algo terrible iba a pasar con el dinero.
And she said, "Mom, something terrible is going to happen to the money."
Mi mamá cogió un palo.
My mom got a stick.
Y me cogió de la mano y fuimos corriendo.
She took me and we ran to the store.
Y cuando llegamos a la tienda,
and we would go to the store.
Estaban las cenizas.
We found the ashes.
Lo hizo.
My dad did it.
Aprendí mucho de los dos. Ella no hizo nada con el palo.
And my mother didn't do anything with the stick.
Se devolvió conmigo muy triste.
She was very sad, and we went
porque era el
back
dinero de la comida.
because that was money for our food.
Pero ella también lo resolvió.
But she also solved it.
Las mujeres lo resuelven todo.
Women solved everything.
Entonces, pero tengo una deuda con ella, es decir, siempre me pareció que no fui lo suficientemente afectuosa porque ella no era tan simpática.
So I have a debt with my mom because I never was very affectionate with her because she was not really sympathetic as my dad.
Ella es mi inspiración.
She is my inspiration.
Y no sé, las víctimas quizás, tanto dolor que he visto.
And also the victims, all the pain that I have seen.
Pero también la pasión de crear una obra, eso es demasiado gratificante. No hay nada que lo pueda, no sé, la gran pasión es poder crear, el proceso de crear es fantástico.
And also the passion to create a play. There's nothing comparable to it, to the passion of creating.
Thank you.
We're very, very lucky to have Dr. Taylor here with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sería, no alcanzamos a ver el video. ¿Carlos no está por ahí? ¿Carlos? ¿Está?
The International Committee of the League. I'm the one that first contacted.
Fantastic.
I'm very happy.